Welcome to English Grade 7. Hello and welcome to English Grade 7. We hope you have a fantastic year and have much fun teaching the materials as we did with writing it. The idea of the book. This book is designed to be fun. Students learn better when they are having fun, and teachers teach better too. The idea isn't to have students copying things off the board and being bored and getting naughty. It is about students using the language to play games, solve puzzles, express themselves, communicate, and have fun. What do students learn? This book is designed to be the main textbook for grade 7 Cambodian students. By the end of the book, students will be well on their way to being A2 level English learners. Students learn 4 skills, grammar and 21st century skills. There is more speaking and listening than reading and writing. Skills: listening, speaking, reading and writing. This book is all about students always doing and always being interested. The readings and listenings are a great mix of engaging, interesting and funny storylines. The speaking and writing encourages the students to use their fantastic imaginations. You will probably notice there is very little grammar in this book, the way you learn it as a kid. Hooray! That's because kids at this age learn grammar much better by actually using it, by listening to it, reading it, writing it, and speaking it. There are lots of great listenings and with actors from all around the world, so students get to hear a lot of different actions and be able to talk from people from all over the Asian community and the world. If you don't have the recordings yet, just go to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport and download them for free. Grammar. This book does teach grammar, but don't worry, it's not boring. Teachers don't talk forever and students don't copy off the board. As I'm sure you remember from your school days, young learners find grammar and copying boring, and if they are bored, they won't learn. There is almost never a point in explaining grammar to children in the same way you would an adult. Don't worry, this will still learn grammar. They will still learn grammar, but they will be able to read it, listen to it, write it, and say it. More than just English, 21st century skills. We don't know what skills and knowledge people are going to need in jobs in the future. So teachers today need to be helping kids to be independent learners, great communicators, creative, flexible, and ready for anything life throws at them. As teachers, we have to help students to learn to think, cooperate, communicate, and work well, fairly, and supportively with their fellow students. This book is designed to encourage a classroom environment to support this where students will be well supported in making mistakes and playing with the language. Students learn group work, how to be supportive of other students, and how to think for themselves and be creative. They also start to look at the world beyond Cambodia's borders and explore how different countries and cultures live. This way, students learn and appreciate different cultures and hear different actions. The idea of teachers teaching knowledge is dying. Teachers teach students to think and learn. So, how do students learn all this? This book has been written with the latest research about how kids learn in mind. This book is all about students always doing and always being interested and enjoying themselves but that doesn't mean they are screaming around the classroom or lesson. Steerers and settlers. Any good young learner's teacher knows about this golden rule of teaching. The idea is that a lesson will switch from steerer to settler throughout the lesson. Steerers get kids excited and settlers calm them down. This way kids can concentrate and learn and behave. That's why our lessons are written as a good balance of both. If you look at the lesson plan in the book, you'll see that the activities change from exciting activities that wake the students up to quiet activities that calm the students down, and then back to an exciting activity again. Learning in context. Students learn new grammar and words as well as 4 skills through games, stories, songs, tongue twisters, and being interested. The book has been written with 13-year-olds in mind, using themes and context that they will find funny, sad, interesting, and fun. Our aim is that students will be interested in the context of every lesson. You will notice that new words and grammar are hardly ever explained. That's because young learners are really good at learning new grammar and words just by seeing them in context. Long explanations and talking about nouns and adjectives only make students bored. They don't make them learn. So instead, we just skip them and try to keep students having fun and interested and engaged with the language. Through good activity. Often there is no correct answer to some questions, and many different grammatical forms are possible. By not giving a correct answer and by focusing on effective modeling, students are encouraged to explore the language and play with it as they go. Why the book is great for teachers too? Easy to use lesson plans. We have written grab and go lesson plans, so all you need to do is to read them before class and think about the reason for each stage. No other preparation needed. We have even written the answers in and provided tab scripts just in case. And everything is in English, so you can remember to be all in English as well. But just because everything is done for you, don't think that you can't try out your own games and activities. We hope this book helps you get the confidence to play around with your own ideas as well. As long as they are fun and in English, your students will love them. Reflection. We have written some things to help you reflect on your teaching at the end of each lesson and help you get better and better every day, just like your Teaching English Dictionary. Words, ideas, and fabulous teaching tips. Ask and answer questions as a class. This is when students find out if they were right or wrong. Students need to know they have understood correctly. There are a lot of different ways of doing this. If you have a busy lesson, it is often enough to just yell out the question and have students yell back the answer. Another way is to ask students to answer one by one. Be careful. Some teachers only ask good students. This makes other students wonder why you didn't ask them. They might think things like, does the teacher think I'm stupid? Another thing to watch out for is some teachers waste a lot of time copying the answers on the board and then allowing students 5 to 10 minutes to copy the correct answers in their notebooks. Students aren't really learning why they are doing this, and this is valuable time that could be used to actually practice the language, which students will learn a lot more from. Boarding useful target language. This is great for reminding students of the structure, pronunciation they should be using. For example, just say students are talking about their friends about what their friends like, but are forgetting the S sound. Why not write "she likes" in the speech bubble on the board? That way you are not interrupting students, but you are reminding them of the grammar without using grammatical terms. Brainstorming. This is a great habit to try and get your students into, and will help them in university and beyond. Students brainstorm before they write and sometimes speak depending on the activity. There are a lot of ways to try and do this. You can have students draw, talk, draw pictures, or even close their eyes and listen to music. For example, you want students to write about their best friend, but what is that students will say that they don't have any ideas? You could have students draw a picture of their best friend and write as many adjectives as they can in a few minutes. This helps students to get ideas without worrying about sentence structure or being neat. Copy from the board. This has been very popular in Cambodian classrooms for a long time. The problem with English class is, though, that it only goes for 50 minutes. A rule of no more than 3 to 5 minutes copying a lesson is probably a good idea. Class discussion. This is when you talk about a subject as a class. This can be useful, but make sure that you are not taking too much, and students know to listen and be respectful about other people's opinions. Concept checking questions. These are questions you can use instead of "Do you understand?" Students don't want to look dumb in front of their friends, so they always say yes. Concept checking questions are usually about vocabulary or grammar. They can be very easy. For example, you have just taught the words pen and pencil. Point to a pen and ask, "Is this a pencil?" Cool kids say. This is a way of introducing natural spoken English. In the book, you'll often see this. Have you seen something similar to cool kids say in other books? Connected speech. Native English speakers don't say one word at a time. They say things quickly and all together, and they don't say some words clearly. For example, native speakers won't say, "Where are you from?" They'll probably say, "Where are you from?" Make sure students listen to and practice the way words are said naturally. Controlled practice. This is when students answer grammar questions when there is really only one right answer. These exercises are supposed to be quick and are just so that students check that they understand grammar rule. Drill. Drill is when students listen and repeat a word or phrase after the teacher, the recording, or another students, so that they can try and say it exactly right. There are lots of ways to drill. You can help students do an action when they say a word. Get quieter and louder and use hand actions to show distress. Be careful, though. If you drill too much, students will be bored and feel like they can't do it right. Drilling used to be very popular, but now people don't like it as much because it gives the idea that the teacher can say a word correctly. Listen to your students. Is someone saying the word really well? Get your students to repeat after that student. Emergency settlers. These are very useful for when everyone has gone crazy. There are lots of different types of these. For example, shout, freeze. Everyone has to freeze to stop exactly as they are, and the last one is out. Emergency steerers. Have you ever looked at your class and thought that they looked really bored? Maybe some people are falling asleep and other kids are looking out the window. You should try an emergency steerer. For example, get everyone to stand up and do heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, or play a quick game. Your students will get a lot more work done after. Encourage. Tell students what they are doing well a lot. It's much easier to encourage good behavior than to punish bad behavior. Kids need a lot of this, even sometimes particularly naughty kids. The best English classrooms are fun and supportive. End sounds. Terminal consonant sounds. In Khmer, we don't really make the last sound of a word, but in English, it's really important. Remembering to make the last sound in English can be really hard for students. Words ending in S or ED are extra hard because the noises change. Having students make the end sound means that people will be able to understand them a lot better, especially native speakers. English-only classroom. An English-only or almost English-only classroom is the best way for anyone to learn English. Let's look at some of the reasons why. If students don't speak English, they won't learn English. If everything is in English, students spend more time practicing English. The more practice students have, the more confident and comfortable with English they are. Students will learn meaningful English. For example, may I go to the bathroom? What do you think? If students are switching from Khmer to English, they are probably using Khmer grammar and pronunciation, which is very different to English grammar and pronunciation. Students can form bad habits this way. If students are speaking in Khmer, they are thinking in English. They aren't thinking in English. The more students speak in English, the more students are thinking in English. When students are able to think in English, they learn so much faster. But if you want to make your kids speak only in English, you have to do it too. In an A1 classroom, you are going to have to use a lot of body language, but you can do it. Give yourself a daily challenge. See how much of your lesson from you and your students can be in English. Error correction. Telling kids when they are wrong is tricky and much less useful than when you tell an adult they are wrong. You have to make sure kids still feel great about taking risks and making mistakes. It is better to look for correct usage and then tell the class how good it is, and the students who did it, obviously. There is no point being fussy and jumping on every little mistake. For example, you have been talking about what students' friends like, and you have noticed that some students are forgetting the S. You hear that one student is remembering the S. The teacher. Okay, let's come back together. Devi, what is your friend like? Devi, she likes ice cream. Teacher, great. Bopha, what is your friend like? Bopha, he likes cats. Teacher, great. I like that. Can everyone hear the S in lies? Say it again. Bopha, he likes cats. Teacher, let's all try saying it like Bopha. Class, he likes cats. You haven't told Devi she's wrong. She's been brave, spoken in front of the class and used the language in a way everyone can understand. It's not the end of the world that her pronunciation is wrong. Follow-up questions. These are great. If you have two students in a question-answer session, making students ask follow-up questions mean that they have to listen to their partner speak and they are using English in a natural way. Free practice. We usually use this word when we are talking about grammar. This is when students get to try out and play around with the language in a way that is meaningful to them. We don't worry too much about students using perfect grammar. This is really when students gain confidence and fluency. This is the main point of the lesson. If students don't practice, there is no point in teaching it. There is zero reason to teach new words and grammar if students don't get to use them in meaningful ways. Often this is speaking and writing where students use the grammar in a natural way through role plays, creative writing, and personalization. Very simple. You have been studying the present simple. Students have seen the grammar in context, in the listening, and looked at the rules. They then talk about their daily routine. Getting kids to move around. Some classes in Cambodia are very crowded and it would take too long to get everyone in and out of the seats. Because of this, we mostly have kids sitting down in our lesson plans. If you have enough room, don't be shy to get kids up and jumping up and down. Give a time limit. Students need to know how long they have to do things. It helps them understand what you want, making notes or detailed writing. It also means students are more likely to stay on task. Do what you tell them to do. If students don't have time limits, they might feel like you are being unfair when you tell them time's up. Or if they have too much time, they will start doing other things. Grammar. Grammar means the set of rules about how a language works. Our language learners need to become familiar with grammatical rules to be understood. But adult learners and young learners are different. Adults often find it useful to break things down into nouns, adjectives, clauses, and phrases. But spending lessons copying out the rules of the present perfect does not benefit younger students. They find it too hard to connect grammar with the language and get bored and naughty. Younger learners learn grammar in context through reading, listening, writing, and speaking. In other words, practicing the structure. Grammar is another reason to enforce an English-only classroom rule. Khmer grammar and English grammar are very, very different. Students find it hard to switch between two, and can form bad habits this way, which can be very hard to break later. Homework. Do you remember homework as a kid? Did you love it? Hate it? What did you miss out on doing because you were doing homework? How much homework do you think kids have from all their other subjects? What do you think would happen if you didn't give homework for a week? A lot of people give homework because if all the students' teachers give homework, they can end up with a lot. People think that if students have lots of homework, they'll do better. But there is very little real evidence for this. Let's think about a grammar worksheet. Students who already understand the grammar are wasting their time, and students who don't understand will feel sad that they can't do it at school or at home. In fact, having lots of homework can be very bad for kids. Let's look at some of the reasons students have less time to spend with family and friends. Students will have no time to do what they want. It can make students feel like they don't like learning. It can make students tired in class the next day so they can't learn very well. It can cause fights at home, especially with weak students. Can you think of any others? If homework is given, it should have students to think and engage. It should be given only when it is important, not just because. Well, just because. Instruction checking questions. These are great. They help you to see if students understand what you want them to do, and they can help you speak Khmer less in class. It's easy. You tell students to do something and then ask questions about what you want students to do and how you want them to do it. So, your instruction checking questions might look a bit like this. The teacher. Close your books and talk with your partner about the questions on the board. Books open or closed? The class. Closed. The teacher. Talking or writing? Class. Talking. The teacher. Where are the questions? Class. On the board. Did you see the instruction checking questions? They are books open or closed, talking or writing, and where are the questions? You can also use instruction checking questions to make sure students remember to behave well. So, your behavior instruction checking questions might look a bit like this. The teacher. I want you to talk to your partner about their weekend. I want you to listen. How can we be good listeners? Do we play with our things or look at our partner? Class, look at your partner. Teacher, and what can you ask after? Class, extra questions. Look at the lesson plans. We have written in where you can ask your own instruction checking questions. Let in. They should be quick. This is so that students can start thinking about the content or the themes of the lesson. For instance, if the lesson is about day at the zoo, you might like to ask students to talk to their friends about animals they expect to see at the zoo. Listening for the big idea. This is also called the gist listening or listening for the main idea. This is the first listening. Students only need to understand the basic idea of the listening. They don't need to hear every word. Just mainly understand what the purpose of the listening is. Live listening. A live listening is where you don't use the recording and you use people in the room to do the voices. You can read the listening yourself, or you can get students to read. You can have different students be different characters. This can be great homework for kids. Model. This is when you show students what you want them to do. You might model them a question, a word, a piece of writing, almost anything. For example, if you are doing writing, it is useful for students to see a similar piece to what you want them to write. This doesn't mean that students copy. It means that they have an idea of what you want from them. Note-taking. In this book, note-taking is a type of brainstorming. See brainstorming. Peer correction. This is when students correct each other's work. Let's face it. You don't have time to correct everybody's work, especially in the middle of class when there are 50 kids in the classroom. But why do we correct anyway? It's so kids think about correct grammar, spelling, structure, whatever. If students correct each other's work, they are thinking about these things. Personalization. The more meaningful, the more memorable. If students can relate a lesson to their own experience of the word, and it means something to them personally, it is much easier for them to understand it. You will often see this as a post-task, but could be a lead-in as well. Post-task. This is done after the free practice. The idea of a post-task is usually that students personalize the lesson and make it meaningful to them in some way. For example, if the reading is about a girl in Russia talking about her grandmother, a post-task might be students talking about their own grandmothers. Pre-teach. This is when you teach a word or idea before listening or reading so that students can understand reading or listening better. This is my best teaching tip about pre-teaching words. Students don't have to understand all the words. Kids are really good at guessing what words mean as well, much better than us old teachers. Young learners can understand a new word by looking at the words around it and guessing. Put students in groups. Good grouping can make or break a lesson. I like to vary my groups so students are working with someone new every lesson. This means that students end up feeling safe in front of everyone. I also like grouping students together randomly. If you group students according to their skill level, it's the same as telling some students you think they are bad at English. Reflection. Reflection means looking back on your lesson so you can think about what went well and what you can do better next time. Reflecting doesn't mean you're a bad teacher. In fact, teachers who think they are already perfect and don't think they need to improve are probably bad and boring teachers. Reflections help you become a better, more confident, happier teacher. They also help you your critical thinking skills and creativity. So it's not just students who get to have fun learning. Roleplay. Roleplays are when students pretend to be someone they are not and then talk to their partner or group. Very simple. One student pretends to be a parent and the other student pretends to be the kid. Roleplays can be really funny and they are great because students feel safe to say whatever they like without worrying if their friends think they are cool. Student-centered classroom. This is what we are aiming for. New ideas about learning language so that students learn by doing. In a student-centered classroom, the teacher talks as little as possible and lets the students spend most of the lessons practicing English. This is much better than the teacher talking about grammar for hours on end and much more interesting for the students and the teacher. Students listen for the answers. This is also known as listening for detail. Students will have already listened once and know basic information about the listening, like where it is, who is talking, and why. When students listen for the answers, we want them to practice picking out specific information. Usually, students won't be able to do this on the first listening. Steerers and settlers. Steerers get kids excited and settlers calm them down. Any good young learner's teachers knows about this golden rule of teaching. The idea is that a lesson will switch from steerer to settler throughout the lesson. This way, kids can concentrate and learn. You should try to never have an activity that goes for more than 15 minutes, and that goes for steerers or settlers. If a settler goes on for too long, students get bored, off task, and find other ways to entertain themselves, like being naughty or annoying fellow students. If steerers go on for too long, kids get overstimulated, silly, and off task, like being naughty or annoying fellow students. That's why our lessons are written as a good balance of both. If you look at the lesson plan in the book, you'll see that the activities change from exciting activities that wake the students up to quiet activities that calm the students down, and then back to an exciting activity again. Have a look at one of the lesson plans. Can you spot the steerers and settlers? Students guess. This is when students look at clues and try to guess what a listening or reading or lesson is about. It's quick, but this is a really important stage of the lesson. It helps students recall useful words and things that they already know about the subject, as well as let them think about what they are going to hear. For example, students will listen to a student talking about a scary experience. The teacher draws 3 things from the story on the board, and students need to try and guess what the story is. TTT. This stands for Teacher Talking Time. It means the amount of time that you talk at the front of the class. An example of good teacher talking time is asking quick, effective questions. But there are lots of different types. Bad teacher talking time is repeating in Khmer or going into too much detail with explanations. Remember the golden rule: 80% of the lesson the student do, and 20% of the lesson the teacher does. Warmer. This can be a quick game or fun activity to get students to start thinking in English. It may or may not link the last lesson or today's work. The main things that you need for a successful warmer is that they be fun and be in English. Warmers are great because they get kids ready and focused for the lesson and give kids great and fun reason to turn up on time, but also give a chance for the late students to arrive. Word stress. In English and Khmer, we say some syllables louder than others. Think about these words in Khmer. They all have two syllables. Which sound is louder? Chkut, slap, twin, slam, cyclo. Now think about these words in English. They all have two syllables. Where is the stress? Silly, partner, English, bathroom, cyclo. Did you guess? In the Khmer words, the stress is on the second syllable. In the English words, the stress is on the first syllable. The stress isn't always on the first syllable in English, but students stressing the wrong part of the word is a common problem for Khmer learners of English.